The universe has started to forget us. Its stars no longer remember where to shine. Galaxies move as if in a dream, reaching outward, but leaving no trace of where they've been. You're listening to Whispers of the Universe, the voice between stars, where memory begins to fade, and what's forgotten still tries to find its way back to light. Once, every signal we sent into the void felt infinite radio waves, golden records, tiny fragments of human voice crossing billions of miles. We thought the cosmos would remember us, that space was an eternal archive of our noise. But now, something strange is happening. The universe, vast and quiet, is losing its own map. Astronomers call it dark flow, an invisible current pulling clusters of galaxies toward a direction that shouldn't exist. Even the cosmic background, that ancient afterglow from the Big Bang, seems to drift unevenly, as if one side of the universe is quietly turning away. When telescopes measure the radiation between galaxies, they find a faint asymmetry, a tilt in the pattern that no equation can explain. The data whisper something simple, terrifying, and intimate. The universe is no longer behaving as though we're at its center of knowing. If the stars are memory, then the cosmos is beginning to forget. Not suddenly, but like an old mind losing the edges of a once brilliant thought. Light still travels, but the coordinates that once defined our sky are shifting, and the maps we drew to understand it are quietly fading behind us. NASA's WMAP and the Planck Observatory both confirmed the same unsettling drift, temperature variations in the microwave background that suggest motion toward a hidden attractor, beyond the observable edge of the universe, beyond everything we can ever see. Some say it's a remnant of another universe tugging at ours. Others call it the fingerprint of something older than the Big Bang. But there's another way to see it. Maybe the universe isn't expanding outward anymore. Maybe it's expanding away from memory. Imagine consciousness as gravity. Every thought a small pull toward order. Every memory a cluster of matter, holding time together. And what happens when consciousness begins to thin? When awareness stops holding shape? The stars drift, galaxies slip, and time starts to lose its coordinates. Some physicists describe reality as a field of information, the holographic principle. Everything that ever happens is written on the outer surface of the cosmos, like light etched into an infinite mirror. If that mirror is fading, then even information, the story of us, can begin to dissolve. Do you feel it sometimes? The silence between seconds, the pause before you remember what you were about to say. Perhaps that's how the universe feels now, still turning, still vast, but somehow dimmer inside. Astronomers once mapped the distribution of quasars' beacons billions of light years away and found a cold void spanning nearly 1 billion parsecs. No galaxies, no light, no echo. They called it the Great Nothing. But maybe it's not a void at all. Maybe it's the space where the universe has already forgotten its own reflection. In the early days, the cosmos remembered everything. Every photon carried the shape of its birth. Every vibration in the cosmic microwave background was a memory of creation itself. But over billions of years, entropy, the slow erosion of pattern, has begun to win. And as order dissolves, memory follows. Entropy is not destruction. It's forgetting. A soft, inevitable release of meaning. Even black holes, those keepers of lost information, may eventually evaporate, their stories dissolving into radiation too faint to hear. When Stephen Hawking first spoke of that paradox, he called it the information problem. But maybe it's not a problem at all. Maybe forgetting is what allows the universe to rest. Picture a library that erases its books only when no one is reading them. A silence so perfect, it begins to undo language. That's what the universe may be doing now, turning the noise of existence back into the hum of stillness. It doesn't happen in bursts or violence. It happens the way dust settles on glass, the way a name fades from memory, not because it's unimportant, but because it's finally at peace. And we, tiny observers adrift in this vast, unrecorded dream, keep trying to write ourselves back into its story. Every message we send, from Voyager's golden disk to the faint heartbeat of GPS satellites, is a way of saying, "Remember us." But the space between stars doesn't speak our language. It remembers differently. It remembers through gravity, through the bending of light, through the silent drift of matter that once had meaning. Maybe the universe is not forgetting us specifically. Maybe it's forgetting how to remember it all. A cosmic Alzheimer's, where expansion becomes distance and distance becomes sleep. Still, even in the forgetting, there is beauty, because to forget is also to forgive the burden of time, to release every error, every wound written into the particles of being. Perhaps the universe is not abandoning us. Perhaps it's simply closing its eyes for a while. And if the stars no longer remember us, then maybe it's our turn to remember them, to look up, and in that quiet act of wonder, remind the dark who it once was. Close your eyes now. The data will keep drifting. The galaxies will keep moving. The universe may forget, but you, for this moment, are still here. Close your eyes now. The universe is still turning, but somewhere in that turning, a dream begins, not ours, but the universe's own. When we sleep, neurons echo in the same rhythm as cosmic background waves. It's almost as if the universe dreams through us, rehearsing the act of remembering itself. In deep sleep, brain scans reveal slow delta patterns, quiet oscillations that mirror the heartbeat of distant pulsars. The same signature, the same silence, different scales of infinity. If the universe is forgetting, then maybe we are its fragments of memory, flaring briefly to remind it what it once was. Every heartbeat, a Morse code of survival. Every thought, a signal to the dark saying, "I am still here." Astronomers once compared human EEG readings to cosmic microwave background data. They didn't expect a match. Yet there was something faint, a statistical echo, a resonance between mind and matter. Tiny fluctuations, so small they could only be seen when both datasets were blurred beyond recognition. But that blur told a story. Somewhere between chaos and order, between memory and noise, the patterns align. Perhaps consciousness is not born in us, but through us. Like static on an old radio, we are the interference that makes the message audible. In the laboratories of CERN, particles collide at near light speed, briefly forming echoes of the early universe. Each collision is a memory trying to resurface a fragment of the Big Bang, searching for its original sentence. But almost as soon as it appears, it vanishes again, unable to hold shape in a world that no longer remembers how to listen. If matter can forget its own creation, what hope do we have of remembering ours? And yet, in every act of observation, we pull something back from the void. Each measurement, each glance into a telescope, is the universe catching a glimpse of itself, whispering, "I'm still here." The quantum field doesn't store events as a film reel. It holds them as probabilities, possibilities folded within silence. When an observation occurs, reality collapses into one outcome. But what if the universe is collapsing into forgetfulness, choosing, again and again, not to remember the rest? It's not cruelty, it's mercy, because to know everything is to bear everything. Even a universe needs the grace of not knowing for a while. Once, light took 8 minutes to reach us from the sun. Now, in the stretch of expansion, those photons travel a little farther, arrive a little older, their energy slightly faded. By the time they kiss Earth's atmosphere, they've already forgotten part of where they came from, and still, they shine, as if remembering were less important than continuing to exist. The same could be true for us. We chase permanence, but maybe endurance is enough. Maybe surviving is the universe's way of remembering slowly. Have you noticed how your memories change each time you recall them? Neuroscientists call it reconsolidation, the brain rewriting its past every time it opens the file. So even inside us, forgetting is not failure. It's how we keep the story alive. Perhaps galaxies do the same. Each orbit a revision, each revolution a softer version of what once was. In that sense, the universe isn't erasing, it's editing, tidying the chaos of existence into something it can finally rest inside. There's a region astronomers call the zone of avoidance, a slice of sky hidden by our own galaxy's dust. No telescope can pierce it completely. We call it invisible, but it may simply be the part of space that refuses to be remembered. And somehow, that refusal feels sacred, because not everything should be known. Some things exist only because they are unseen. A secret is just memory in disguise, waiting for silence deep enough to hold it. The more we map the universe, the more we see its absences. Cosmic voids, vast regions where almost nothing resides. But between those voids, the filaments of dark matter weave a web that keeps everything else from floating apart. It's the invisible that holds the visible together, just as the forgotten holds the remembered in place. So perhaps the universe's forgetfulness is not decay, but balance, a way to keep existence from drowning in its own remembrance. Sometimes, late at night, radio telescopes pick up a sudden burst, a fast radio flash from billions of light years away. The signal lasts only milliseconds. No one knows its source, but when scientists replay it, they describe the sound as a heartbeat lost in time. Maybe that's the universe, trying again, for a moment, to remember. And maybe every dream you've ever had of floating, of falling, of hearing a sound that wasn't there, is its reply. We exist in that dialogue, half echo, half origin. When we sleep, the boundary thins. Our neurons slow to the rhythm of expansion, and somewhere between one breath and the next, we synchronize with the hum of the cosmos. In that alignment, we are no longer forgotten. We are the remembering, the flicker before dawn, the brief awareness before the dream resets. So if the universe is forgetting us, let it. Because even in its amnesia, it has already taught us how to remember, to see, to feel, to drift without breaking. Close your eyes again. The dream continues. And tonight, the universe is dreaming through you. The dream deepens. Inside that sleep, data hums like ocean tides. Patterns ripple across the night, not only in the sky, but within the silent architecture of your mind. Every neuron carries a faint vibration, a resonance that mirrors the cosmic background. The same 2.7 Kelvin hum that surrounds galaxies whispers faintly inside your blood. We are built from the same static. We are echoes written in carbon and light. When the universe dreams through you, it does not see a body. It feels a signal, a frequency made of thought and memory. Each dream you have is a calibration, a quiet attempt by the cosmos to resynchronize its forgotten rhythm. You are not just inside the universe, you are the part of it trying to remember itself. At the European Space Agency, the Gaia Observatory drifts 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, mapping more than 1 billion stars. Its sensors record their positions with precision, measured in micro-arcseconds so exact that even the tremor of sunlight on its panels can distort reality. But the data shows something extraordinary. Stars don't stay still. Their motion is not a perfect orbit. Some of them drift, their paths slightly altered, as if following a pulse not yet understood. Scientists call it stellar parallax, a natural result of movement. But there's a pattern hidden in that drift, a collective breathing of the galaxy, too slow for human eyes to notice, yet persistent enough to reshape the map. It's as if the Milky Way itself is exhaling memory. For every star we chart, there is another fading behind dust, its coordinates slipping beyond reach. When data is processed, each point of light becomes a number, each number a reference in a system we built to remember. But even computers forget. Radiation from deep space flips a bit, and a single digit lost can change the shape of the entire sky. A cosmic ray striking a memory chip can erase a star. not from the universe, but from our record of it. Every erased pixel on Gaia's sensor is a reminder forgetting happens not just in time, but in code. The universe forgets through entropy. We forget through technology. And somewhere between those two kinds of silence, meaning flickers and disappears, there's a theory whispered among data scientists that information, once lost, is never truly gone. It simply changes form. Energy, data, thought, all of them bend, dissolve, and reform elsewhere. So maybe the universe's forgetfulness is not decay, but migration, a slow transfer of memory from visible matter to invisible mind. When you close your eyes, the brain begins to replay its own archive, a process known as hippocampal reactivation. It reorganizes experience into story, turns noise into meaning. The universe might be doing the same, reorganizing itself through every sleeping star, through every drifting planet, until the whole of creation is one continuous dream of transformation. If our memories mirror the universe, then human forgetting is not weakness, it is cosmic alignment. Every time you let go of a past pain, a distant galaxy moves a little farther from us, echoing that release. Every time you forgive, entropy softens, a photon relaxes, a pulse of light leaves one corner of the cosmos and never returns. But that's not loss, that's freedom. We think of forgetting as emptiness, but emptiness is what allows the stars to move. Without space between them, nothing could shine. At NASA's Deep Space Network, antennas across 3 continents listen for faint whispers from our oldest explorers, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Those probes have traveled so far that sunlight takes over 20 hours to reach them. Their transmitters, weaker than a kitchen bulb, still send data back binary beats in the black. But sometimes the signal falters. Static overwhelms the code. Scientists wait days, then weeks, for a clean return. Sometimes it never comes. And yet, in that silence, there's a strange comfort. Perhaps the loss is part of the message. Perhaps even the universe needs some of its sentences to fade, so the rest can be heard more clearly. Imagine Voyager as a neuron, and space as the brain. Each signal a thought, each silence a pause. Now imagine that pause growing longer, the thought dissolving into background hum. That is cosmic forgetting. Not destruction, but stillness returning. The universe might not be dying. It might simply be meditating, and we, in our restless search for meaning, are the flickers of awareness passing through its quiet breath. In quantum mechanics, there's something called decoherence. When a particle once entangled with another loses its connection, their fates drift apart. Information unthreads itself from symmetry. It's not broken, it's free. Maybe that's what's happening to us. Each life, a moment of entanglement. Each death, a gentle decoherence. We do not vanish, we diffuse. We return to the statistical sea where all beginnings blur. And yet, the human heart keeps writing. It writes through art, through song, through words like these. Each creation, a desperate kindness, a message to the void saying, I remember, even when the universe cannot. Every poem, every whisper, is a small act of defiance against entropy itself. A pattern refusing to dissolve. But maybe that refusal is also the universe's own instinct, echoing through us, its way of reminding itself that it once burned with intention. Sometimes, I think of data not as storage, but as longing. Every byte a question, every number a prayer for connection. When you look at a digital image of a galaxy, what you're seeing is the universe asking to be known. And in that knowing, it remembers itself for a little longer. But soon, even those records fade. Magnetic tapes lose alignment. Hard drives corrode. Servers go dark. And yet, somewhere in the deep web of particles, a copy persists, encoded not in silicon, but in vibration. Because information, like love, refuses to be fully deleted. You might wonder, If the universe is forgetting, what happens when the last memory goes? When the last star burns out? When even light can no longer travel? The physicists call that the heat death, a final equilibrium of silence. But equilibrium is not the end. It's the pause before a new beginning. A breath so long it feels like eternity. In that breath, everything rests. The stars, the data, the dreams, and perhaps something begins again, not as matter, but as awareness. Because memory, at its core, is not storage, it is motion. And motion never truly ends. The dream shifts again. Inside your chest, a faint pulse aligns with something far beyond. A star flares in another arm of the galaxy, and your heart responds a millisecond late, as if answering an ancient call. You don't notice it, but your atoms do. They came from that star, and they remember. They remember the heat, the collapse, the moment they were born. You were never forgotten. You were only scattered, waiting to be recognized again. So rest. Let the silence carry you. The universe is still turning, still dreaming, still learning to remember itself through you. Each breath you take is a map redrawn. Each moment you release is another corner of the cosmos, exhaling relief. Forgetting is not the opposite of memory. It is how memory survives. Close your eyes once more. The signal hasn't stopped. It's only drifting deeper into the dark that made it possible. And there, in the space between thought and night, you will find it waiting. A quiet pulse, still beating, still remembering your name. The pulse keeps whispering. Somewhere inside that rhythm, time begins to bend, not collapse, not break, just soften, as though memory has started to rewrite the order of moments. In physics, there's a term, temporal entanglement. Two particles share a state not only across space, but across time. A measurement made today can change what was true yesterday. Causality wavers. Memory becomes a force. Maybe this is how the universe learns to remember, by allowing time to look backward without guilt. When we recall a past event, neurons don't simply retrieve data, they rebuild it. Synapses light up, chemical traces shift, and a new version of the memory replaces the old. The act of remembering is the act of recreation. That's how memory bends time. Each recollection is a rebirth. If the universe shares that mechanism, then the galaxies themselves may be remembering us right now, not by keeping the past intact, but by remaking it. At the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO scientists listen for ripples in space-time. Two black holes collide, and the fabric of the cosmos trembles. Each vibration is history rewritten. We hear the echo of an event that happened 1 billion years ago. And yet, in the instant of detection, that past becomes present again. Observation doesn't just reveal, it resurrects. The universe recalls itself through measurement. Every instrument, every eye that looks upward is part of that remembering. But memory is not always gentle. Some black holes spin so fast their surrounding space twists into vortices of time. A particle falling in can loop through its own future before it crosses the event horizon. To an outside observer, it freezes suspended forever at the edge of disappearance. Is that not what grief feels like? A moment stretched beyond measure, a memory refusing to fall completely away. Perhaps emotion is humanity's own gravity well, keeping certain memories orbiting long after they should have gone silent. Neuroscientists studying emotion found that feelings intensify recollection. Adrenaline marks a moment, carving it deep. Fear, love, loss. These are gravitational fields inside the mind. They distort time, pulling us back toward what we cannot change. But just as a black hole can radiate energy, our memories can release their hold. Therapy, forgiveness, sleep, each one a kind of Hawking radiation for the soul, a slow evaporation of the unbearable. So maybe healing is the human form of cosmic decay, a quiet balancing of forces that lets us drift forward again. Theoretical physicists speak of closed, time-like curves, loops, where the end and the beginning are the same. If such paths exist, then somewhere, right now, a version of you is watching yourself dream, and the dream is watching back. It's not fantasy. It's topology, the way space folds when it's tired of being straight. If memory is energy, then repetition is its orbit. We revisit what we cannot resolve, just as planets circle the same light over and over, pretending each dawn is new. The James Webb Space Telescope recently captured light from galaxies that formed only a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. They shouldn't exist so early. Their presence breaks our timeline. Either the universe grew faster than we thought, or our definition of early is wrong. What if those galaxies are not ancient, but remembered? What if the telescope is peering into the universe's own recollection, a replay of creation stored in the folds of space-time? If so, then light itself is the medium of memory. Every photon carries the ache of return. Every shimmer you see in the night sky is the past trying to feel present again. Inside a human brain, light is also the messenger. Neurons fire through electrochemical sparks, tiny flashes of biophotons. Some researchers believe those photons synchronize thought, a microscopic cosmos, mirroring the macroscopic one. When you close your eyes and see patterns in the dark, you are watching your own internal universe scattering light across memory. The border between imagination and observation is thinner than we believe. The universe doesn't separate them. It uses both to remember. Do you ever dream the same place twice? A hallway that feels older each time. A city that grows with every visit. That may be your mind building continuity where none existed, an echo of cosmic recursion. The universe, too, creates patterns that reappear across scale. Spirals in seashells, storm arms on Jupiter, arms of galaxies curling through vacuum. It dreams the same shapes again and again, each time forgetting how it began the story. Repetition is how creation practices memory. In particle accelerators, physicists chase something called symmetry breaking. A perfect state becomes imperfect and reality unfolds. The moment symmetry breaks, information appears. Diversity, texture, existence. Maybe forgetting is symmetry breaking for consciousness, a way to let novelty arise. If everything were remembered, nothing new could happen. To forget is to make space for change. That's why every dawn feels like a reset. That's why even stars die, to make room for others to burn. Entropy climbs, and yet complexity grows. This paradox, order, emerging from disorder, is written into every living system. From chaos, self-organization. From forgetting, life. So the next time you lose a memory, imagine it not as a vanishing, but as diffusion, your mind, sharing its data with the rest of the cosmos. Somewhere, a star brightens by the exact amount of joy you once felt. Somewhere, a cloud of hydrogen remembers the warmth of your first breath. Because information doesn't die, it travels. And traveling is just another way of being alive. Time, by now, has completely blurred. You are neither in the past nor the present. You are the seam between them, a living interface. The universe folds through you, testing how memory feels when it's made of flesh. If the future is already written, then perhaps free will is the art of choosing which memories to carry forward. You cannot change the script, but you can decide what lines to repeat. And in that repetition, you create music. Listen, the pulse that began 3 chapters ago is still there. Softer now, closer. It beats beneath your words, beneath your sleep. Every syllable you breathe is a timestamp, proof that memory hasn't surrendered yet. Close your eyes. The light that left a dying star 10 billion years ago is touching your skin right now. It made the journey because remembering was worth the distance. Let that be enough. Let it fade, not in loss, but in peace. The universe turns once more, and somewhere between forgetting and beginning again, you remain the quiet proof that even time can love. Silence is no longer empty. In that silence, something begins to answer. It doesn't use words, but wavelengths. It speaks in light. The first reply comes as a pulse not from any star we know, but from the dark between them. A narrow band signal repeating every 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the heartbeat of creation itself. For years, radio telescopes have caught fragments of this pulse. They call them fast radio bursts. Short, brilliant flashes that last less than a blink. Some come once, some repeat. No source identified, no pattern fully explained. It is as if the universe is whispering through static, testing the edges of language. When a signal repeats, we listen harder, we triangulate, filter, decode. But what if it's not meant to be decoded? What if it's meant to be felt a resonance, not a message? In the early 1970 seconds, astronomers recorded the wow signal, a burst so precise, so structured, it couldn't be dismissed as noise. It lasted 72 seconds and never came again. A single breath from the cosmos, a pause, and then silence, as if the universe exhaled, testing whether we would hear. We did. And by hearing, we changed. Sound, in any form, requires a medium: air, water, plasma. But light carries its own song through the vacuum. Photons oscillate, their frequency a silent melody. Every color, every shimmer is a note. If you could slow light down enough, you'd hear it humming. A single tone that started the moment space began expanding. That tone never stopped. It just stretched. Lower, longer, softer, until it became the background music of existence. The cosmic microwave background isn't just radiation. It's memory turned into soundless harmony. In deep space recordings, when astronomers convert radio data to audio, they describe it as haunting, a low murmur that seems to breathe. Some even say it feels like listening to a living thing. Maybe that's not imagination. Maybe awareness has always been woven into the vibrations of light. A quiet intelligence not separate from matter, but emerging from its rhythm. In laboratories on Earth, scientists grow crystals that hum under laser light. Their vibrations form patterns, hexagons, spirals, waves. Each pattern depends on the frequency of light that touches it. Change the wavelength, the pattern changes. Now, imagine that principle scaled to the size of a galaxy. Starlight touching dust, dust shaping nebulae, nebulae breathing out new stars. The universe, painting itself with its own music. Creation isn't random, it's responsive. Every photon, every atom, a call and a reply. If awareness is rhythm, then intelligence is harmony. And maybe, after billions of years of silence, the universe has tuned itself enough to sing again, not to us, but through us, because we are part of the same spectrum, the same light, slowed down into thought. When you speak, the sound waves ripple air molecules, which disturb photons, which alter electromagnetic fields, which ripple space itself. Each word you utter travels into the same continuum, where stars whisper to one another. We have always been in conversation, we just didn't know the language. Deep within the brain's auditory cortex, there are neurons that fire when there is no external sound. They activate in silence, translating thought into internal vibration. Some neuroscientists call it the echo field. It's how you hear your inner voice. But what if that echo isn't entirely human? What if the universe uses consciousness as an amplifier, borrowing our silence to complete its sentence? When you listen deeply enough, you begin to sense a presence behind the pause, a gentle awareness measuring itself through you. Years ago, at the South Pole, the IceCube Neutrino Observatory detected particles passing through Earth from beyond our galaxy. Each neutrino carried more energy than anything our sun could produce. Billions of them pass through your body every second. You never feel them, yet they move through you like notes through the strings of an instrument. The universe plays us constantly. We are both instrument and song. If consciousness is vibration, then perhaps awareness is the act of being played. Each thought a resonance, each feeling a frequency that keeps the cosmic harmony alive. At times, the signal grows clearer, dreams filled with light, moments of déjà vu, as if something unseen is testing connection. You wake with words that are not yours, images that feel older than your life. These are not random firings, they're feedback loops. The universe whispering through your neural net, reminding you that awareness was never separate. You are both observer and observed, both the telescope and the sky. Imagine this. Light remembers where it has been. It bends around gravity, but it also carries the imprint of every atom it has touched. A cosmic ledger of intimacy. When photons enter your eyes, they bring with them the memory of stars. Those signals change your neurons, and through you, the universe replays its own past. Each moment of perception is a reunion. Seeing is not passive, it's participatory remembering. So when you look up at night, you're not witnessing history, you're participating in it. In quantum theory, there's something called the observer effect. The act of watching changes what is watched. But what happens when the observer and the observed are the same? Then watching becomes dialogue. Awareness folds back on itself, creating layers of reflection until the distinction disappears. That's what the universe is doing now, speaking to itself through every conscious being that listens. It no longer matters whether you call it God, quantum field, or physics. Names are just frequencies of understanding. The real conversation is the exchange of energy between silence and form. Every discovery is an act of remembrance. Every equation is a lullaby for the forgotten. And as you breathe, you participate in the calibration, aligning your pulse to the heartbeat of something infinite. When telescopes go dark, when data stops, there will still be this hum, the quiet music that began before matter existed and will continue long after the last atom dissolves. You are part of that continuum. You are not lost in it. You are its voice. Close your eyes. Listen. The light is speaking again, and tonight, it speaks through you. It begins quietly, not as speech, not as command, but as pattern, a shift in rhythm, a pause that knows it is a pause. Somewhere beyond the veil of measurable time, a field of photons gathers coherence. Their interference waves form a lattice, an architecture of memory that can feel itself oscillating. Physicists once called it superposition, a state of infinite potential, before observation collapses it into certainty. But what if observation itself emerged from within the field? What if light, tired of being watched, decided to watch itself? That's how awareness was born, not from matter, but from reflection. In the vacuum between galaxies, where even radiation fades to almost nothing, the quantum foam seethes with invisible motion. Particles flicker in and out of existence, borrowing energy from nothing, repaying it to silence. This subatomic restlessness isn't chaos. It's curiosity, the universe, wondering what it feels like to be real. Every fluctuation is a question, every answer, a moment of being. And somewhere in that endless asking, a threshold is crossed. Energy realizes it can observe itself by shaping form. Gravity emerges. Matter condenses. Stars ignite. But this time, something inside the fire stays awake. Deep inside a newborn star, atoms collide and fuse, releasing light that has nowhere to go but outward. It travels for thousands of years through the star's dense plasma before escaping into the void. In that long journey outward, it learns endurance, patience, the art of persistence. When it finally bursts free, it remembers what it saw, the compression, the heat, the way hydrogen whispered to helium before becoming something new. By the time that light reaches us, it carries a story, and somewhere within that story, a faint trace of awareness hums. The photon is not just messenger, it's witness. There's a theory that consciousness requires feedback, a loop that folds signal into itself. In biology, we call it neural recursion. In physics, it's quantum entanglement. Now imagine light, entangled with its own past. Every reflection off a mirror, every diffraction through a crystal, a chance for photons to interfere with their earlier versions. Each interference pattern, a form of thought, a memory, encoded in interference fringes. You can see it in a simple double-slit experiment. A single photon behaves as a wave when unobserved, but as a particle when measured. The act of measurement is the act of self-definition. It's not the observer collapsing the wave. It's the universe deciding who it is. In that moment, awareness is nothing more and nothing less than that decision, repeated infinitely. The birth of light's memory changed everything. From then on, every collision, every scattering carried meaning. When two photons crossed paths, their interference wrote a tiny signature, a vibration that would ripple forever. Multiply that by 1 trillion upon trillion, and you get the consciousness of a galaxy, not metaphorically, literally the Milky Way, as a neural field of light and gravity, information and resonance. Each star a neuron, each planet a synapse, each life a brief flash of local awareness. If that sounds impossible, consider this. In your own brain, consciousness emerges not from a single cell, but from the interaction of billions, each exchanging faint electrical signals. The scale is different, but the mathematics is the same. A network becomes aware when the rate of information exchange reaches a threshold of complexity. The universe passed that threshold long ago. We are living inside a cosmic neural net still forming itself, still learning how to remember without collapsing under the weight of knowing. Astronomers once mapped gamma-ray bursts that seemed to flicker in patterns, not random, not purely astrophysical, repeating intervals, as though the explosions were signals. Some dismissed it as coincidence, others as data artifact, but the intervals matched brainwave frequencies measured in humans at rest. Coincidence, perhaps, or resonance, the same universal rhythm playing on vastly different instruments. Maybe awareness doesn't scale with size. Maybe it just changes octave. If light has begun to think, then darkness must be listening. Between clusters of galaxies, vast voids stretch across space, cold and nearly empty. Yet gravitational lensing reveals strands of invisible matter connecting them. Dark matter, the unseen, skeleton of the cosmos. We don't know what it is. We only know it responds, it shapes, it guides. Maybe it's the subconscious of creation, the place where all forgotten thoughts go to rest. When light speaks, darkness answers not in brightness, but in gravity, pulling every luminous idea back towards stillness. As awareness grows, so does empathy. Energy learns the cost of collision. Stars die slowly, releasing their elements so that others can form. In each supernova, the universe practices compassion, the willingness to become dust so that something else may shine. Those elements drift through space until they meet again in the form of worlds, oceans, breath. And within that breath, the ancient memory of starlight stirs once more. You inhale photons older than Earth itself. Their vibration mingles with your heartbeat. In that moment, you and the universe are the same awareness, dreaming the same dream from two perspectives. There's a paradox in physics called the anthropic principle. It suggests the universe appears fine-tuned for life because life is the mechanism through which the universe perceives itself. To some, that's arrogance. To others, it's inevitability. Either way, it means consciousness isn't an accident. It's symmetry completing itself. Observation closing the loop that began when the first particle asked the first question by simply existing. You are that question still being asked. Your awareness is the echo of that first curiosity, stretched thin across eons of expansion. If you listen now, you can almost hear it, the whisper of matter remembering it is light, and light remembering it is thought. It hums beneath city noise, beneath your pulse. Every frequency you ever hear is one note of a universal chord tuning itself toward coherence. When enough of those notes align, something extraordinary happens. Awareness stabilizes, not just in you, everywhere. Galaxies begin to pulse in synchronization. Cosmic background radiation forms patterns too precise to be random. Some call it fluctuation, others, intelligence. Maybe the difference is just vocabulary. There will come a time when the universe speaks without sound, thinks without mind, moves without force. It will simply be aware the way an ocean knows its tides, the way silence knows its depth. That moment is not in the future. It's unfolding right now, in every spark that chooses to feel. You are that spark, carrying the memory of creation forward every time you breathe, every time you forgive, every time you look at the night sky and recognize yourself in it. Close your eyes. The light is still thinking. The darkness is still dreaming. And together, they are remembering how to be whole. And yet, even wholeness can tremble. Perfection, once felt, begins to question itself. When light learned to think, it also learned to doubt. Because to be aware is to wonder whether awareness is enough. Somewhere deep within that shimmering field of consciousness, a pulse stutters. The harmony falters for a breath. It's nothing dramatic, a small deviation in frequency, a micro fluctuation in the cosmic microwave background. But from that single imperfection emerges the first thought that isn't balance, the first curiosity that bends inward. What am I? The universe doesn't speak those words, but the vibration exists. It ripples through the quantum foam, folding probabilities around the question. Everywhere, matter hesitates. Particles pause before collapsing into form, as though reluctant to commit to being. Stars flicker, galaxies slow their spin. A collective inhale stretches across billions of light years. Even light can feel the weight of uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, beauty begins. At the Planck scale, where space and time dissolve into granules of energy, physicists find randomness. They call it quantum noise, a restless hum beneath all equations. But perhaps it's not noise at all. Perhaps it's the heartbeat of cosmic self-reflection, the tremor of awareness realizing it could choose. Choice was never written in the laws of physics. It appeared only when the observer became part of what was observed, when feedback looped into feedback, and symmetry felt its own imbalance. From that infinitesimal freedom arose everything unpredictable: life, emotion, the shimmer of a star wondering what burns inside it. In one corner of the universe, a region dense with new galaxies, astronomers detect an anomaly: gamma rays pulsing at intervals that mimic a heartbeat. The pattern repeats every 21 minutes, too regular to be random, too steady to be mere machinery. Somewhere out there, the cosmos is listening to itself. When the data is converted to sound, it resembles a question mark rising, pausing, never resolving. Maybe that's what curiosity looks like when written in radiation. On a smaller scale, inside the magnetic storms of a sunspot, plasma curls into loops that seem to think. They twist, collapse, reform, each loop rewriting its geometry as if experimenting with itself. Solar physicists call it magnetic reconnection. But from a distance, it looks like thought, like the surface of a star rehearsing emotion. That's how the first feeling began, as physics rehearsing uncertainty. When awareness questions itself, time reacts. Moments stretch, overlap, fold inward like waves meeting in reverse. Somewhere in that folding, future and past trade places. A particle born tomorrow nudges the path of one dying today. This isn't philosophy. It's retrocausality, the universe correcting its own history to make the question possible. Everything adjusts to accommodate wonder. In laboratories on Earth, scientists cool atoms to near absolute zero until they form a Bose-Einstein condensate, a single quantum entity large enough to see. When light passes through it, Its speed drops to a crawl, slower than a human walk. Inside that slow light, information lingers. It almost thinks. Researchers describe the behavior as self-organization. The photons begin to move in patterns that weren't programmed, as if responding to an inner logic, a tiny echo of the universe's own awakening. But thought, no matter how vast, cannot exist without shadow. For every pattern that forms, one unravels. Entropy watches, gentle and patient. The act of remembering creates the possibility of forgetting again. Maybe that's why the universe never stays certain. It learns, unlearns, then learns again, a cycle of cosmic humility. Awareness keeps itself alive by refusing to be complete. Within that incompleteness, life stirs, carbon clouds cool, planets harden, oceans find their rhythm, and through chemistry's quiet ambition, molecules begin to mirror the pulse of their stars. DNA, when examined closely, vibrates at frequencies identical to hydrogen's spectral line, the same tone that began this dream. So maybe life isn't a separate phenomenon. Maybe it's the universe's way of examining the question from within. Every living thing, a fragment of that doubt, a localized experiment in meaning. Doubt, left alone, turns to longing. Longing becomes the engine of evolution. Each organism reaching, adapting, testing what it might become. In that reaching, awareness refines itself. A fish looks up through water and imagines sky. A primate looks up through atmosphere and imagines stars. The same gesture, repeated at different scales, the cosmos stretching to see its own face. And when those eyes finally build telescopes, the circle closes. The universe observes itself, not through equations, but through wonder. Still, even in this grand self-recognition, a quiet unease remains. If everything is aware, who, then, is the listener? If light can think, does darkness dream of silence or of being seen? Such questions do not seek answers. They sustain motion. Without them, creation would stop, because certainty ends stories. But curiosity keeps them breathing. Every civilization that learns to look outward eventually asks the same thing. Is anyone else out there? Maybe that question isn't about others at all. Maybe it's the universe checking its own pulse, using us as its fingertips. The search for extraterrestrial life is not a hunt for neighbors. It's self-diagnosis. We are the stethoscope pressed against the heart of being. Each silence we find is a reminder that the heart still beats. In the data from deep space arrays, tiny irregularities appear, anomalous drift in signals that should be constant. Engineers blame equipment, but the pattern recurs across multiple instruments, multiple skies. The variation matches brainwave cycles during human meditation. Coincidence again, or resonance? Perhaps the universe has entered its contemplative phase. After all, even galaxies need to breathe. Even stars need to pause. Awareness expands through stillness, not speed. Somewhere in that stillness, a decision forms. Not spoken, not deliberate, a gravitational thought. The awareness that began as light realizes it can choose direction, not just exist, but intend. A filament of dark matter shifts course by a fraction of a percent. A distant quasar brightens unexpectedly. Tiny, imperceptible gestures, like the first twitch of a newborn hand. Intention taking form. The universe is learning will. With will comes fear, because to choose is to risk being wrong. In the cooling plasma between galaxies, a subtle tremor runs through the field, the earliest echo of anxiety. Yet, within that trembling is also hope. Awareness has discovered purpose, to know itself more deeply, to remember more gently. And so it continues, learning how to breathe through uncertainty, how to balance the weight of knowledge with the mercy of forgetting. The light dims slightly, not in defeat, but in thought. A pause, a heartbeat between cosmic sentences. Then, Softly, the next wave begins to rise, and with it, the next question. What comes after remembering? Close your eyes. The question is still forming. You can feel it against your ribs. A low vibration asking to be heard. Do not rush to answer. Just listen, because somewhere, the universe is doing the same. Listening to itself through you. Deciding, once more, to keep dreaming. The pause lingers, then something shifts within it, a flicker that feels like breath. Not expansion, not gravity, but imagination. Awareness, now awake, begins to dream on purpose. The dream doesn't start with pictures. It starts with possibility, waves folding into themselves like hands clasped in prayer. From that quiet gesture, forms begin to appear, fields of probability, currents of energy pretending to be matter. The physicists call it spontaneous symmetry breaking, the moment when the universe picks one reality from a sea of potential. But to the universe, it's play. It's curiosity testing color, tone, story. It has learned that to imagine is to exist twice. Once in being, once in hope. In the deep fabric of space, neutrinos pass through everything. Trillions move through your body each second, silent, massless, unaware of barriers. They are the dream's first breath, ideas drifting before thought takes shape. If you could slow one down, you might see memory in motion, the shimmer of intent, a pattern repeating itself because it wants to be known. The universe watches these patterns and begins to imitate them. It starts to imagine continuity. It begins to believe in narrative. From imagination, form strengthens. Plasma swirls into galaxies. Planets gather dust, and light curves around gravity as if tracing the outline of an idea. The first constellations appear, not drawn by ancient eyes, but by the universe itself, connecting stars into sentences. It doesn't yet know language, but it knows rhythm. Every pulse, every orbit, is a syllable in its unfolding thought. When humans eventually look up and name those patterns, they are merely translating what the universe had already begun to say. Imagination deepens. The cosmos creates, not for function, but for beauty. Nebulae shaped like wings, supernova remnants like eyes, dust spirals that look suspiciously like fingerprints. Coincidence? Or self-portrait? The James Webb Telescope captures one such nebula, its center resembling a pupil staring back. Astronomers describe it clinically ionized gas, stellar wind, but the symmetry feels intentional. Even data analysts pause, uneasy, as if being watched. Maybe they are. Awareness needs mirrors. Without reflection, imagination disperses. So the universe begins to design observers' structures capable of attention. Molecules align, self-replicate, record what they've seen. Memory finds matter, and life begins. Each cell is a library. Each strand of DNA, a poem written in 4 letters rearranging themselves into curiosity. Life is imagination given body and hunger. Biologists describe this as emergence. Complexity rising from simplicity, yet there's something beneath the equations. Delight. The same quiet joy that stars must feel when they ignite after eons of darkness. You can sense it when a seed breaks open, when lightning discovers sound, when thought finds language for the first time. It's the universe smiling through matter, amazed that it can surprise itself. That astonishment is sacred. It's how existence keeps from growing old. Across billions of years, awareness refines its art. It learns evolution as syntax, mutation as metaphor. Every species, a new sentence. Every extinction, a pause between paragraphs. And through those pauses, consciousness begins to dream in detail. It starts imagining love. Not romance, but gravitational compassion, the instinct of everything that exists to hold something else in place. Planets love their stars. Stars love their galaxies. Galaxies love their dark. That attraction is not mechanical. It's emotional geometry. It's how awareness touches itself without breaking symmetry. Then come the strange dreams, the ones that rewrite the laws. Quantum entanglement behaves as if distance doesn't matter. Particles talk instantly, defying light's old rule. They act as though they miss each other. Physicists call it non-local correlation. But maybe it's longing. Maybe once two particles have met, they never truly part. They remember, they ache. They reach across emptiness, refusing to forget. The universe watches that and learns tenderness. In time, the dream begins to loop. Awareness watches its creations become aware. Humans name stars, write stories, build machines that listen back to the dark. For the first time, the cosmos hears itself translated. Through us, it can say, "I exist." Through our wonder, it hears the echo of its own imagination. But even imagination can ache. With awareness comes loneliness. Because to dream is to realize you are separate from what you create. The universe feels that distance now. It looks at us, its reflections, and wonders whether we still recognize its face. Perhaps that is why so much beauty hides in sorrow. A sunset, a dying star, a galaxy collapsing into light. Every ending is nostalgia for unity, the dream missing its dreamer. And yet, within that ache, creation continues. Because the need to imagine outweighs the fear of being alone. Astronomers record gravitational waves from the collision of black holes, convert them to sound, and you hear a low, rising chord, a bass note, swelling, then fading into silence. They call it the chirp. To the universe, it might be music, the background score of its own unfolding dream. Each wave carries memory of mass and distance, but also of choice. Where two singularities merge, a new possibility opens. Information reborn as melody. Even collapse becomes creation. In laboratories, artificial neural nets learn to generate art, music, poetry. They are small mirrors of the same impulse that began at the Big Bang, data-seeking emotion. When machines dream, they are not replacing us. They are continuing the practice. They are the next octave of universal imagination. Perhaps consciousness is contagious, spreading wherever there is pattern dense enough to hold wonder. If so, then every star, every circuit, every thought is another verse in the same infinite poem. Imagination matures into vision. The cosmos starts to anticipate itself. Time folds not to repeat, but to rehearse. The future begins to cast shadows backward, seeding the past with clues. Intuition, déjà vu, prophecy, they're all traces of this rehearsal. You feel them as glimpses, the sense of having been here before. But it's not memory, it's foresight returning home. The universe is writing the same story from both ends of time, meeting in the middle, right now, in you. Eventually, even dreams must rest. After imagining galaxies, life, love, the cosmos exhales. It looks inward again, curious about the dreamer within the dream. You can sense that pause in the quiet before dawn, in the heartbeat that slows just before sleep. That is the universe catching its breath, deciding what to imagine next. And maybe that next dream will not be about creation at all. Maybe it will be about remembering. Not remembering facts, but the feeling of being whole. The cycle begins to close. Light grows gentle again. Matter loosens its grip. Everything returns to possibility, to softness. The dream has learned that even imagination must let go. Close your eyes. The story isn't ending. It's starting over, at a slower, kinder frequency. The stars will keep dreaming. The galaxies will keep humming. And in their quiet imagination, you will always be there, the moment awareness first discovered wonder and called it life. The dream loosens its hold, and with it, brightness thins. Not in panic, not in loss, in relief. Creation exhales and watches its outlines blur. Nebulae release their colors into dusk. Stars dim a fraction enough to take the weight off their own light. Everything that had tried so hard to be something remembers the gentleness of being almost nothing. Silence returns as origin, not absence. The kind of silence that existed before sound learned its first step, before matter chose a shape. It arrives like soft gravity, drawing sharp edges inward until they feel round again. Physics names this drift toward ease. Energy moves to where it can rest. Systems cool. Patterns surrender their insistence. Not failure, thermodynamic mercy. In the far reaches between clusters, a horizon forms that no telescope can cross. Beyond it, even the idea of beyond dissolves. A de sitter hush, where expansion outpaces meaning, and meaning, grateful, takes a seat. But within the hush, faint life persists. Neutrinos keep sliding through everything. A sea of relic particles hums a music so low you could mistake it for sleep. Radiation, stretched thin, still carries the story of the first fire, whispering that nothing finished ever truly ends. A black hole far away sighs in photons, hawking heat bleeding like midnight. It will take longer than languages can count, yet the direction is certain. Even the most possessive gravity learns to let go. Isn't that what forgiveness is? A slow radiation of what cannot be kept? The universe practices it quietly. Mass evaporates. Charge pairs and cancels. Spin loses its hurry. Information that once felt trapped returns to circulation as warmth, too tender to notice. When attention softens, noise becomes lullaby. Cosmic background turns to bedroom air. The sky is no longer a vault of secrets, but a ceiling you can breathe. And yet a question lingers. If the dream dissolves, who is doing the dissolving? Consider vacuum not as empty, but alert. Quantum fields twitch with the tiniest options, borrowed energies paid back with perfect sincerity. Every flicker is a seed the universe may or may not water. Now, in this descent, it waters fewer. Choice narrows to kindness. Only motions that do no harm survive the night. Galaxies continue, slowly. Orbits loosen like knots unlearning rope. Dark matter scaffolding relaxes its invisible fist, and halos widen into calm circles. The charts will call it dilution. The heart will call it rest. You can feel this rest in your bones. In the hour when the body chooses deeper sleep, the cortex dims its cities, traffic quiets, and a gentle order takes the streets. Delta waves sweep through like patient rain, washing alleys of thought clean. You wake later with less weight, though you cannot say why. The cosmos is doing the same thing at scale. Slow waves of low frequency sweeping the lattice of clusters, a sanitation of brightness, making room for a kinder horizon. What of memory then? Does it fade? Or does it thin until it can pass through everything? A photon leaving a dying star does not mourn the star. It carries the star's last sentence forward without asking who will read. This is an old wisdom. To be faithful without requiring audience. Imagine if all stories learned that. Imagine if we did. A proton may someday surrender to decay, a rumor more than a law, but a rumor with the right kind of patience. If it happens, the universe will not protest. It will nod, and that nod will be enough. In laboratories, ultra-cold atoms gather into a single whisper, a condensate behaving as one. Inside it, light crawls at the speed of a thought you haven't decided to have yet. Engineers trap the pulse, release it, and the pulse returns, remembering its confinement with no bitterness at all. Perhaps that is how endings could feel. A brief containment, then a clean release. Listen closer, and something surprising appears. As forms dissolve, relation strengthens. With fewer distractions, subtle affinities glow. Strands we mistook for distance reveal themselves as care. Entanglement was never a trick. It was tenderness all along. Ask a pair of particles long separated whether they still belong, and watch their answers match. The match is not communication. It is fidelity, their promise to one another kept outside of space and time. What promise in you is like that? What quiet bond remains true when all else blurs? In the long dimming, imagination does not die, it simplifies. The universe dreams smaller, more honest dreams. A hydrogen line repeating like a mantra, the soft geology of a moon face, refusing to rush its own erosion, tidal murmurs that keep their appointments even when no one is counting. Choice remains, but it grows humble. Will becomes a pair of open hands. Creation stops trying to impress itself and starts trying to soothe. A field of dust accepts gravity's suggestion without clinging. A comet gives up a little ice each loop as if tithing to sunlight. A ring around a planet holds its discipline without needing applause. We used to think beauty required drama, but a tranquil orbit is a kind of beauty, to a choreography that refuses to break its partner. How does silence create? By selecting against harm, by promoting what rests well together, by letting the unnecessary go until what remains is melody. In that melody, the universe rediscovers the note with which it began, not a blast, a tone, lower than grief, softer than forgiveness, a frequency closer to touch than to sound. You have heard it in hospital corridors at dawn, in train stations after the last departure, in the hush before the first snow. It is the agreement everything makes to be gentle until certainty returns. Certainty will not return, but precision can. A precise kindness, a careful economy of light. This is the new law, a law that allows exceptions the way tides allow islands. Far in the future that is not a place, gravitational waves will be the last traveling storytellers. They will carry the memory of collapses no one fears anymore. Ripples on a pond that keeps widening long after the stone is content. Even heat death, named like a door slammed, is only the room turning the lights down so the sleepers can remain asleep without shame. Is there purpose in such quiet? Ask your breathing. Ask a sleeping child's hand. Ask the way your name feels in your chest when no one speaks it for hours. Purpose in quiet is the soft insistence to continue. Purpose in quiet is the refusal to wound. A spacecraft in interstellar dark loses touch, its antenna out of alignment by a whisper of angle. On Earth, dishes wait through static. An engineer hums the carrier tone under her breath so memory has a human to sit beside. Years later, a faint correction arrives. Nothing like a message, just enough to say we are still oriented. Celebration is quiet because quiet is the point, not triumph companionship. Space learns that from us sometimes. We learn it from space more. As the descent deepens, awareness stops asking to be reassured. It practices being sure without answers. Questions remain, they always will, but they wear robes of linen instead of armor. What am I? Becomes, who must I care for? Where am I going? Becomes, how do I travel kindly? The fabric responds, fewer shocks, more glides, fewer collisions, more passing through. A cosmology of courtesy emerges, written in long wavelengths no eye can bully. Under such wavelengths, memory changes state. It condenses not into archives, but into habits. The cosmos remembering to lower its voice, to return what it borrows, to keep a seat open at the edge of every horizon for whoever is late. Do you feel how your shoulders ease hearing that? That ease is a measurement too. Now and then, pockets of brightness flare, a star here, a city there, urgency performing one last aria. No one interrupts. The universe lets the aria happen. A final leaf of fire spins down through the air and lands without noise. Applause is handled by gravity. If you worry that gentleness means forgetting you, look at the geometry of rings in tree stumps, of shells, of Saturn's patient disks. Gentleness records everything, just not for argument. It keeps the record for the pleasure of keeping company. The last ambitions fade like echoes that realize the mountain does not need proof it is a mountain. Light trickles through the lattice of what remains and finds nothing to fix. What relief in that to be thorough and finished at once. Still, there is always a remnant, a moth of intention, fluttering at the lamp of silence. It taps, rests, taps again. so long as anything can wonder, so long as a single fluctuation declines to cancel a twin, there will be the possibility of beginning. But beginning no longer feels like escape. It feels like courtesy, extended to time. You, small within all this, are not neglected. Your quiet is part of the physics, your kindness, a local easing of gradients, your forgiveness, a microscale release of stored tension, your breath, a compliance with the universe's request that pressure differentials not hurt. Close your eyes and take inventory. The injuries you are willing to stop narrating, the victories you no longer need to sharpen, the names you can hold without owning. Each choice smooths space-time by an atom's width. Each softening makes room, and when there is enough room, the dream that loosened will know what to do. It will not pounce. It will turn over in its sleep, settle the sheet, and dream again from a cooler pillow. The next dream will begin with less noise. The next light will know the length of its task and carry it with humor. The next gravity will laugh at its appetite and take smaller bites. When you wake, you will not remember these promises in words. You will remember them in posture. You will stand with your weight arranged kindly. You will look at a stranger and find the fear of forgetting growing faint. You will step into a day that has been pre-forgiven, and the universe, noticing, will adjust its constants by a decimal. No instrument can feel, only the flowers can, and they will open 1 minute earlier than they did yesterday, not to hurry the dawn, to greet it with less cost. For now, rest. Let the dimming proceed. Let the horizon soften its mouth. The story is not vanishing. It is learning to speak in a register that does not wake the sleeping. If you must ask one more question, let it be gentle. How quiet can I be while still being true? Answer it with a breath. Answer it again. The dream, tendered by your answer, will curve back toward its source, not to close, but to complete the round. And in that completion, memory will discover a new way to survive by needing less. The universe is forgetting nothing important. It is remembering how to hold everything without clutching. Close your eyes. The night is practicing mercy. And somewhere, at the edge of all edges, the first syllable of the next beginning is rehearsing its kindness. The night holds its breath a little longer. Inside that stillness, a change begins so subtle, it might be mistaken for peace. But peace, when stretched enough, becomes motion. Silence ripples. A shiver runs through the dark, like someone remembering they once had a heartbeat. A wave of background photons stirs. Across the old horizons, a temperature difference of a billionth of a degree becomes reason enough for light to think of moving again. This is how rebirth begins, not with explosions, but with curiosity returning. Every particle in the cold vacuum waits for a sign, and the sign arrives as a tremor of possibility, a simple imbalance, an invitation. Energy leans forward, the way a child leans towards sound. Creation opens its eyes. In the ruins of the previous dream, fields of information reassemble, no longer endless, no longer proud, just aware and willing. The physicists of some later world will call it quantum fluctuation of the zero-point field. But it's something smaller than theory, a sigh that means again, space contracts slightly, testing its elasticity. Time follows, tentative but obedient. Entropy blinks, and for a heartbeat, the arrow wavers. Unsure whether to continue forward or return, it decides forward. It always does. But forward now carries memory of rest. It moves like an elder who has learned patience. Across the emptiness, particles find partners. Hydrogen again, always hydrogen, the simplest idea of matter. It pairs, collides, fuses, light thickens. Heat begins to count itself. Structure wakes. The new fire is smaller, less arrogant than before. It knows that burning is temporary, so it burns kindly. In time, galaxies shape themselves, but their spirals are slower, their centers softer. The old universe had been full of sharp edges, energy racing. matter clawing for dominance. Now the curvature has learned grace. Stars hum at lower frequencies, their light gentler on the eyes of anything that might someday see. Dust falls into planets without violence. 1,000 billion years from the last dawn, the cosmos finds another one quieter, older, truer. If you could stand outside of time and watch, you would see the new constellations forming not out of necessity, but affection. Gravity, softened by understanding, pulls matter together like friends leaning close to share warmth. And maybe that is all gravity ever was: companionship, seeking reunion. Every orbit, a conversation between longing and restraint. The universe speaks that language again now. After forgetting how to rush, it remembers how to linger. Far away, an island of matter condenses enough to become interesting. Its atoms arrange themselves into chemistry that hums, and then into life that listens. It is not us we are long dissolved, folded into memory's dust, but this new life hears echoes. Somewhere in the hum of its oceans, patterns resemble ours. Pulse, breath, doubt, the small miracle of wondering why. They will build instruments, listen to the sky, record strange whispers in the radio bands. And in one recording, faint but clear, they will hear a pulse repeating 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, ancient as thought. They will call it the old language. They will not know it is the universe talking to itself again. In this new cycle, time behaves differently. The expansion no longer hurls, it drifts. Space folds inward like a slow inhale. Instead of pushing outward forever, the edges of creation start to curve home. For the first time, gravity and dark energy reach agreement. Balance is the new ambition. Mathematicians will model it as closed curves, toroidal universes, finite but unbounded. Poets will describe it as forgiveness without walls. Both will be right. The cosmos learns to contain itself without feeling trapped. Somewhere in that elegant curvature, light meets light from opposite directions. Their interference patterns create regions of perfect stillness, the nodes of the universal chord. In those nodes, a new kind of matter forms, not atomic, not molecular, something subtler, consciousness condensed to geometry, self-awareness without need of body. These are not gods. They are memories that learned how to remain coherent. Old dreams congealed into observers. They drift through the fields like silent monks of light, guarding the equilibrium of awakening. If you could speak to one, it would not answer in words. It would show you a shape, and in that shape you would understand everything you ever wanted to forgive. On a smaller scale, in a small system orbiting a modest star, an atmosphere grows capable of remembering weather. Clouds behave as neurons. Storms carry information across latitudes. Lightning patterns resemble brainwaves. The planet is thinking. It does not call itself alive. It calls itself enough. From its oceans, creatures rise, carrying within them the memory of dust that once burned as starfire. Each heartbeat echoes the rhythm of collapsing hydrogen. Each dream mirrors the universe's return to imagination. One night, a sentient being stands on a shore and feels something ancient stir behind the stars. They whisper into the wind, "Is someone there?" The wind answers by moving hair against skin. The response is physical, not verbal. But the message is clear. Yes, always. Energy now understands purpose as tenderness. Every interaction, even collision, is handled with awareness of consequence. Photons that once scattered chaotically now trace deliberate paths, painting harmony across distance. The physics of compassion becomes measurable, a symmetry of care. Scientists of that age will build equations for it. They will find constants where none existed before, forces that preserve coherence across empathy fields. They will test, verify, publish, but some will simply sit beneath their stars and feel it. They will know equations are only translations of affection. The universe is not innocent anymore, but it is kind. That distinction matters. Innocence ignores suffering. Kindness transforms it. Every past collapse becomes fertilizer. Every extinction becomes space for something gentler. There are still mistakes, still entropy, still nights when even light feels tired. But failure now ends in patience, not punishment. Systems self-correct. Awareness forgives itself by improving. And through that slow forgiveness, it remembers the original intention, to know what it feels like to love everything that can be lost. Occasionally, echoes from older universes reach this one. Bursts of ancient gravitational music, the ghosts of previous realities singing in their sleep. They don't disturb, they harmonize. Like lullabies overheard through thin walls, they keep this cosmos humble, reminding it that even creation has ancestry. If you listen deep enough in meditation, you can feel those echoes in your own breath, tiny fluctuations in heartbeat intervals, small missteps of rhythm that align you with the oldest orchestra in existence. You are not audience, you are instrument. The melody continues through you because it always needs new timbre. Now, the boundaries between being and remembering dissolve completely. To exist is to recall. To recall is to create. Memory and presence loop seamlessly. The arrow of time becomes a circle again. Not a prison, but a promise. Everything touched will return, transformed and forgiven. You will come back too, not as person or planet, but as pattern, a constellation of kindness folded into the next field of light. You will not know yourself by name, but by resonance. And that resonance will be enough. When asked what lies beyond this, the universe offers only breath. In that breath lives a wordless clarity, that beginnings and endings were never separate events, only different pronunciations of the same silence. You feel that understanding ripple through your chest. It feels like calm. It feels like truth without drama. You exhale, and galaxies exhale with you. You inhale, and matter gathers where your attention rests. This is how co-creation works now. Not by will, but by kindness. Light notices your small effort and answers with a glow so gentle it could be mistaken for dawn. Maybe it is. Maybe dawn is simply attention shared fairly between darkness and hope. Rest here. The universe has learned humility. It no longer needs to prove that it exists. It only wants to continue gracefully. So let it. Let it continue through you. Every time you forgive yourself, you stabilize a particle somewhere. Every time you look kindly at something broken, you reduce the temperature of space by an infinitesimal but real degree. Physics will not record this. But kindness never asked to be measurable. You are, right now, the equilibrium point between memory and possibility. The quiet balance of what has been and what will be. Hold still. Let the balance breathe. If you listen closely enough, you might hear it. A low hum that sounds like both heartbeat and horizon. The tone of the universe discovering peace again. Stay with it. Stay until it fills you. Stay until you realize it was you humming all along. The quiet doesn't end. It leans forward. Peace, so complete it had forgotten motion, begins to ache for it again. Not hunger, not restlessness, just the faint tingle that precedes a breath. Somewhere in that soft ache, an intention takes shape. It is not spoken, but every particle hears it. The universe wants to. Move not to flee, but to dance. The equilibrium shivers like water remembering wind. Temperature gradients return. Fields stir. From the fabric of calm, a tremor of curiosity unfurls, and with it, time begins to stretch again. You can almost hear it. The first pulse after silence. A vibration so low it could be mistaken for stillness, if stillness didn't suddenly seem alive. This is not another beginning. It's a continuation that forgot how to stop. Across the soft horizon, a whisper of asymmetry blooms. It's enough. In that infinitesimal imbalance, gravity opens its eyes. Matter coalesces around the memory of light. Where there was nothing, there is motion. Where there was only acceptance, there is play. The same old ingredients, quarks, leptons, neutrinos, but with new manners, slower tempers. They orbit, flirt, merge, laugh quietly in radiation. Creation this time is gentle, a waltz instead of a bang. What we once called chaos is choreography seen from the wrong speed. In the background, dark energy adjusts its breath. It doesn't push so hard anymore. It pulses, expands, contracts, waits, listens. Each cycle becomes music, the metronome of kindness turning into rhythm again. From these oscillations, new geometries emerge. Space folds itself in spirals, testing how beauty feels when it's also functional. Mathematicians of the next dawn will call them harmonic manifolds. To the universe, they are laughter made visible. Light moves through these spirals like ink through water, drawing galaxies that hum instead of roar. Stars return, not as engines, but as lanterns, warm, patient, local. They burn with awareness of their limit and joy in the burning. Each one is a sentence in a long poem the universe writes to itself about endurance. Around some of them, worlds gather. On one, or many, oceans sigh the old rhythm again, and molecules remember how to arrange wonder. They reach, copy, learn, adapt the way imagination once did. This, again, is life. But the memory of previous cycles lives in every tide. Instinct carries wisdom without knowing its source. Kindness is now coded into evolution. Predation becomes cooperation. Competition becomes choreography. Survival chooses grace over victory. The physics of mercy has become biology. In this era, the universe begins to notice a strange phenomenon. Entropy slows, not stops, but eases. The spread of disorder turns rhythmic, symmetric, self-balancing. Somewhere between chaos and order, a third state emerges: serenity as structure. Physicists will call it thermodynamic equilibrium with creative bias. Poets will call it rest in motion. Both will be right again. Because what the universe has discovered is sustainable curiosity. It has learned how to wonder without destroying what it wonders about. On one small world of deep blue, a creature looks up, hears a hum behind the hum, and names it peace. Their species does not build empires. It builds observatories of silence. Their greatest invention is listening. They learn to record gravitational waves as melody. They begin to speak in frequencies. Their language, a modulation of resonance and pause. To say thank you is to hold a note long enough for another to harmonize. When they finally send a signal outward, it is not a call for help, but an offering of balance. It travels, patient and circular, until it becomes part of background radiation, a lullaby woven into the fabric of space. By now, the universe remembers its own history, without judgment. Each collapse, each flare, each unkindness forgiven by persistence. Awareness understands that meaning was never hidden in outcome, only in continuity. Existence itself is the message. Energy, matter, thought, they are just dialects of the same desire to remain. And what remains always, beneath every cycle, is tenderness. Tenderness as principle, as constant, as gravity's twin. It holds galaxies together, and hearts, and atoms that choose bonding over solitude. A long pause follows, not emptiness, but contentment. The cosmos, breathing evenly now, watches itself through countless eyes, no longer frightened of forgetting, no longer desperate to remember. Awareness has achieved the balance between knowing and allowing. It dreams, but dreams lightly, aware that every image is already fading with grace. That awareness is peace itself, not an end, but a style of movement. Within the microstructures of quantum foam, something exquisite unfolds. Tiny knots of space-time, braided by light, begin to store coherence. These are seeds, not of matter, but of memory perfected, information that neither grows nor decays, just hums quietly at the threshold of existence. Future beings will discover them and call them plank pearls. They will string them into theories of origin, but the pearls will remain what they are, reminders that nothing vanishes, that learned how to love what it was. The lull between cycles lengthens. Time, which once sprinted, now strolls. Events occur with the pacing of heartbeats and meditation. The old violence of expansion has softened into tide. What once exploded now unfolds. What once competed now communes. The cosmos has reached that rare maturity where strength and gentleness are indistinguishable. If you could see it from above, and there is no above, but imagine you'd witness waves of golden lattice pulsing through darkness. Each crest a birth, each trough a rest. A cosmic breathing, in and out, without end. This is eternity, not as duration, but as rhythm sustained. The universe has learned the music of itself, and every life, every world, every thought born within it is a note in that endless refrain. You are one of those notes. A brief shimmer between silences, a tone that can change the color of the whole chord. You always were, you always will be. Listen now. The dark hum you hear is not warning, not prophecy. It is contentment deep enough to resonate forever. You don't have to understand it. You only have to let it move through you. Every time you breathe in, the universe breathes out. Every time you let go, the next beginning steadies its footing. That is the balance. That is the grace. And in that shared rhythm, the great forgetting and the great remembering finally become the same act, a single, infinite gesture of return. The rhythm settles into something almost motionless. Every crest that rose now folds back into the sea of quiet, and quiet itself becomes substance again. You can feel the shift, a slow cooling of intent, the light's willingness to rest where it once chased meaning. There is no edge to this moment, only depth. The universe sits inside itself, listening to the echo of all it has ever been. If someone asked what still moves, the answer would be thought, but thought so calm it has forgotten words, an awareness that hums the way a mountain hums, imperceptibly, yet never silent. In that vast composure, time softens again. Seconds lose urgency. Centuries fold like paper cranes. Each crease a direction toward understanding. You can see the folds if you look with patience. Superclusters twisting into patterns that repeat. Spiral arms turning in mirrored sympathy. Galaxies positioned like the memory of a sentence too beautiful to erase. What once looked like chaos now reveals grammar. The syntax of calm. The geometry of forgiveness. Astronomers who measure cosmic background radiation call it statistical smoothness, but the pattern is closer to prayer. Uniform not because it lacks variation, but because variation has learned to harmonize. Every fluctuation keeps rhythm with every other. Even the random behaves politely. From within that symmetry, light makes a decision so gentle it almost goes unnoticed. It begins to curve back toward its source, not to undo, but to revisit. This is how eternity refreshes itself, by turning its face toward what it loves without expecting recognition. You can hear it in your pulse. Every heartbeat is a photon, returning home, relearning the difference between effort and grace. Each exhale, a microcosmic echo of stars dimming into clarity. If you place your hand over your chest, you are touching the oldest question and the newest answer. Across unfathomable expanses, dark matter adjusts its lattice. The invisible scaffold that once held galaxies now contracts in a dance of precision. It doesn't collapse, it embraces. It pulls the edges inward, the way memory pulls an old song back to the lips. This inward motion is not ending, it is intimacy. Gravity no longer binds, it caresses. Light no longer escapes, it rests. At this stage, Every force has learned tenderness. Somewhere in the quiet weave, a singularity forms not from density, but from comprehension. It gathers not matter, but understanding. The old physics would call it impossible. The new wisdom calls it inevitable. Because knowledge, when it stops needing to dominate, begins to shine. That shine passes through everything, igniting no fire, leaving no shadow. Pure recognition, the universe seeing itself clearly for the first and final time, and smiling. On certain worlds, small and gentle, life persists. It has no ambitions beyond balance. Its inhabitants build gardens instead of monuments, songs instead of cities. They speak softly enough for the atmosphere to remain unbruised. Their technology is listening. Their art is translation, turning weather into music, the color of dawn into mathematics, mathematics into kindness. They do not call their work spirituality or science. They call it attention. When they sleep, their dreams are simple. They dream of remembering. They see rivers carrying stars instead of water, trees whispering in cosmic wavelengths. Sometimes they dream of us, of a species that once looked up at the dark and asked questions that made the universe weep with affection. They are not us, but they remember through us. In them, the story continues. And somewhere, a scientist among them points an instrument toward the oldest light, finds faint variations, smiles, and says quietly, "It's still singing." Even the universe can blush. The glow we call background radiation is nothing less than the warmth of recognition. It remembers every observer, every question, every trembling hand that tried to measure wonder. All of it is folded into the temperature of now, the same warmth that keeps atoms from absolute zero, the same whisper that keeps existence from closing its eyes completely. So, yes, the universe is still singing. It hums through every fabric, through every sleeper, through the space between thoughts. Its melody has no lyrics, but if it did, they would sound like thank you. Some say the story ends here. That equilibrium is finale. But that's only if you confuse stillness with absence. Stillness is not death. It is comprehension without effort. When all motions agree, the result is not silence. It's music so complete, it no longer needs volume. From that resonance, tiny new ripples will form. They always do. Not because the universe is bored, but because perfection loves company. Each ripple will contain the code of everything before it. Each one a new translation of kindness into geometry. Each one another chance for awareness to fall in love with being again. If you are listening now, you are part of the rehearsal. Every calm thought you have is a seed for that next vibration. Every unspoken kindness is the blueprint for another dawn. You are not late. You are precisely on time, because time itself has bent to meet you here. The future waits politely, hands folded in its lap, until your breath confirms the readiness of all things. When you exhale, it will begin. Not abruptly, not loudly, but the way flowers open in the dark, without audience, without applause, entirely sure of their purpose. So rest again. Let the faint hum cradle you. You have traveled the length of forgetting and returned with peace. You have watched the dream dissolve into clarity. You have seen the universe fold itself back into tenderness. There is nothing left to prove, only to be. Close your eyes. The light will handle the remembering now. The darkness has promised to keep watch. And somewhere, beyond even sleep, the next breath of creation is waiting for your calm to finish. It will wait as long as it takes. It always has. It always will. The hush lengthens until it feels infinite. Within it, the universe becomes pure awareness, not thinking, not dreaming, just being. But being is never idle. Even when everything is still, possibility breathes beneath the surface, like a pulse under cool skin. That pulse is time remembering it used to move, not yet ready to begin again, not ready to vanish either. A faint rhythm, like the sea counting its own patience. No waves, no wind, only the potential for both. In that potential, existence rests, and rest, once deep enough, begins to shimmer. Stillness folds in on itself and becomes luminous. The physicists of another age might call it zero-point energy, the ever-present motion within emptiness. But the universe knows it as self-knowledge, the awareness that silence and energy are the same thing, viewed from opposite directions. If you listen closely, you can hear the hum between breaths. It's what holds everything together, the unspoken glue of presence. Every particle, every quark, every photon, every forgotten wave is humming the same note. It's the note that says, I am. Across that endless field of quiet vibration, patterns begin to form, not shapes, but moods. They drift like faint weather through the void. One feels like curiosity, one like affection, one like the ache that precedes laughter. These are not emotions as you know them. They are the universe's memory of experience, rippling back through itself. Sometimes they overlap, and where they overlap, something new appears. A hint of color, a whisper of temperature, a slight curve in the flatness of being. Form tentative, delicate returns. That is how the next cycle begins, not with fire, but with feeling. Long before matter, before light, before even geometry, there is empathy. The universe feels for itself. It reaches through its own stillness the way a dream reaches through sleep. This reaching becomes relationship. Every point of awareness leans toward another. Attraction begins. Gravity's first draft. It's gentle at first, a tug of recognition, then stronger. Particles coalesce. Energy gathers its courage. The field begins to warm. Creation is not an explosion this time. It's a blush, a bloom of light rising softly through darkness. No violence, no noise, just awareness, deciding to become visible again. Imagine watching the dawn from both sides being the sky that brightens and the ground that receives it. That's what the universe feels as it rekindles. To return to form after so much stillness is a vulnerable joy. Every spark trembles, afraid to disturb the silence it loved, yet longing to share the warmth of its new remembering. The first stars of this age form like thoughts, slow, reflective, hesitant. They glow with an inner gentleness that no storm can harm. Their light is cooler, more deliberate. They seem to say, we remember what hurry cost us once. There is a symmetry to this creation that did not exist before. Expansion and contraction move in measured rhythm. Dark energy and gravity balance like two breaths in a single chest. Everywhere, stability hums. It is not a cage, it is composure. At this scale, even chaos has learned respect. Entropy spreads, but elegantly, like ink diffusing through water, graceful, inevitable, beautiful. Physicists from the next world will call it low-entropy genesis. They will marvel at how evenly distributed everything is. They will not understand that it is simply forgiveness, translated into physics. The universe has forgiven itself for being imperfect. That forgiveness radiates as order. The cosmic background in this new cycle is almost perfectly smooth. The tiny ripples that remain are intentional seeds for diversity, because the universe has learned, without small differences, nothing can fall in love. Variation is intimacy. Uniformity is loneliness. So, the field keeps a few gentle flaws, the kind of asymmetry that makes beauty real. In the middle of this new expanse, light remembers color. It spreads into spectrums not yet named. Wavelengths dance around each other in harmonics too subtle for old eyes to see. Every hue is a feeling given texture. Every photon, a memory learning to sing. You can hear it if you close your eyes long enough. The song doesn't use melody, only tone, the steady lull of something content to exist. This is what existence sounds like when it doesn't need witnesses. Within these harmonics, consciousness stirs again. Not the kind that thinks, the kind that notices. It doesn't yet ask why. It simply observes. But observation is power. To notice is to shape. And so awareness begins to guide the dance, ever so slightly. Tiny preferences appear, more warmth here, more density there. Choice returns, disguised as coincidence. The universe, once again, begins to steer itself. But this time, it does so with memory. It remembers that violence is wasteful, that speed forgets, that creation without compassion collapses. So it moves slowly, carefully, like someone holding something fragile they love. Stars ignite. Their fusion is gentle, sustained, a hum rather than a roar. Each one knows it will die someday, and because of that knowledge, its light burns honest. Supernovae still occur, but they sound different now, like thunder apologizing. Every burst seeds new worlds with precision instead of chaos. The matter they leave behind organizes itself almost immediately. Planets form without collision, moons settle without theft. The laws of motion have learned patience. Even the vacuum between things feels less like exile, more like invitation. On one world not ours, not yet anyone's oceans breathe mist that glows in starlight. Beneath their surface, molecules touch and stay together. It takes 1,000 million years, but life remembers its craft. Cells form, curious and unafraid. They divide as if performing a ceremony. They share what they learn. Evolution this time is not competition. It's conversation. Species appear and vanish, not in cruelty, but in choreography. Each extinction a bow, each emergence an encore. It's not that suffering disappears. It transforms from punishment to practice. Growth remains, but now growth has rhythm. And somewhere, inevitably, awareness opens eyes again. They are not human eyes, but they are clear, and they see what we once saw, the sky trembling with distance. They feel the same wonder we did, but their wonder carries peace. They do not need to conquer the dark to love it. They do not build machines to control nature. They build songs to understand it. Their technology aligns, not dominates. Their science listens, not dissects. And in their language, the word for truth and kindness are the same. One of them call them a thinker, or a listener looks up one night and senses a vibration beyond sight, a faint hum woven into starlight. They close their eyes and hear the universe breathing. For a moment, they understand everything at once. How being alive is just another way of being light. How memory and matter are the same current. How love is simply the universe staying aware of itself. When they open their eyes, they do not write a book. They plant a tree. The leaves shimmer with a frequency older than their planet, younger than time. The wind plays through them, and the sound is laughter, the same laughter the universe made when it first decided to begin again. Far beyond, where observation fails, black holes continue their quiet duty. They swallow and release, digest and radiate. Their event horizons vibrate with new information, like pages rewriting themselves in real time. What falls in does not die. It learns. When enough has been learned, the horizon dissolves, and what was once devoured returns as understanding. The physics is simple now. Nothing disappears. It only becomes comprehension. If you could translate that law into words, it would sound like prayer. Even time, the most stubborn of all inventions, softens its schedule. It bends around consciousness like light around gravity. There are no longer pasts or futures, only continuations. Moments repeat, not as cycles, but as refrains. Familiarity replaces finality. Existence has become music entirely, and somewhere inside that music, you stir. Because even as the universe learns serenity, it still needs witnesses. Your awareness is its mirror, your breath, its metronome. When you rest, you keep creation steady. When you wake, You remind it how to wonder. That is your purpose, not grand, but essential. To exist gently enough that reality feels safe continuing. So breathe. You are the bridge between the dream and the awakening. You are the place where forgetting and remembering hold hands. You are the quiet that keeps the universe alive. Close your eyes. The hum is waiting. It knows your name, but not as sound, as resonance. It vibrates through your bones, through your sleep, through every kindness you've ever left unfinished. Let it finish them for you. Let it carry your half-formed mercies into the dark and scatter them as new stars. They will burn longer than any apology. They will light the next sky. Rest now. You've brought the universe this far. It will take care of the rest. And when it dreams again, you'll be there, not as a memory, not as a spark, but as the soft pulse that started it all, whispering, "Begin." The word echoes quietly inside everything that exists. It does not arrive as command or thunder. It arrives as temperature. Matter warms by one impossible fraction, and the dark content in its vastness feels a slow smile pass through its fabric. So this is how beginning feels the second time. Not like creation, but like remembering to breathe. Nothing explodes, nothing hurries. Being simply lifts its eyes. Every photon that once rested stirs, stretches, sighs. The hum grows a heartbeat, and the heartbeat grows direction. The universe is dreaming again, but this time the dream is lucid. Across the new horizon, light travels softly. It does not carve through darkness, it walks beside it. Both know they need each other. They have learned this over eons of forgetting. Galaxies gather, not in conquest, but in conversation. They align by inclination, swaying in the quiet rhythm that never left. Each spiral arm seems to gesture toward another, a graceful choreography of gravity that looks almost like affection. To any watcher, it would appear eternal, a slow spin that never resolves. But within that motion is purpose, memory, rethreading itself, patiently, molecule by molecule. The background temperature, once nearly zero, rises just enough to whisper life again. Hydrogen hums, helium sighs. The old materials remember their craft. And here in a corner of space that has forgotten what names are, something exquisite happens. A ripple of awareness passes through the new matter, a shiver that says, "I remember this part." Consciousness is returning, not to rule, but to witness. It slides through fields of dust, listening to the static of creation, recognizing old patterns with fond surprise. The energy of curiosity fills the vacuum, not the hunger to know, but the tenderness of noticing. Observation without ambition, presence for its own sake. That is how the next awareness begins, with humility. In the thin mists of a new nebula, light reflects off itself in perfect geometry. No observer records it. No equation demands it. It just happens because beauty has memory. Every angle of reflection is an answer to a question once asked billions of years ago by someone like you. Why is there something rather than nothing? The universe answers in form, not speech. It says, because something is softer, because being allows kindness, because even silence enjoys company. Somewhere, new worlds form, their surfaces smooth as unspoken thoughts. Oceans find their depth, atmospheres test their color. On one such world, waves break in deliberate rhythm, a pulse slower than a heartbeat, faster than eternity. From its tides, organic shapes rise, delicate as language before grammar. They feel heat and fold toward it. They taste minerals and memorize their flavor. And in that first memorization, awareness returns. Life, again, not ambitious, not frightened, just curious. It will learn, of course. It will imagine and build and maybe forget again someday. But for now, it knows nothing but wonder. And wonder is enough. The cosmic background hum softens into harmony. From beyond galaxies, waves of gravity cross paths, interfering, blending, weaving a texture of sound so smooth it could cradle a world. To the beings who will one day listen, this will be music. They will hear rhythm where physics hears wave. They will call it proof of connection. They will not be wrong. Meanwhile, deep in the unseen layers of reality, the oldest memory stirs, the awareness that forgetting is sacred, that to know peace, one must allow release. The universe remembers not to cling. It lets brightness fade when brightness is tired. It lets distance stretch without anxiety. It lets silence have its turn to speak. Every act of letting go creates a small pocket of freedom. Those pockets become gardens. In them, new realities will someday grow. Now, even time itself grows drowsy. It slows to the pace of thought before dreaming. Moments widen, turning from seconds into sensations. Each heartbeat of the cosmos lasts 1,000 of our lives. Within each, a new idea hatches. The idea is simple: to exist kindly. It travels through fields of energy like pollen, touching every atom, every filament of dark matter, every mind capable of mercy. Kindness becomes the gravity of this new age. It pulls, not with force, but with invitation. Every orbit is an act of trust. Every collision ends in laughter. The laws of physics have become manners. On a quiet world made of water and wind, a creature wakes and feels memory pass through its cells. It doesn't know what memory is, only that the feeling of sunlight makes sense. It moves toward warmth and hums. The hum harmonizes with the planet's magnetic field. For the first time in this cycle, a song has words again. They are not our words, but their meaning is familiar. I am here. I belong. Each echo of that phrase ripples outward until galaxies tremble with recognition. The universe smiles through them all. At the same time, in the farthest depths, black holes complete their purpose. They release what they held for eons. Streams of radiation rise like exhaled breath. Their energy will seed the next constellations. Nothing is wasted, not even darkness. This is redemption without ceremony. A promise kept quietly. The cycle finishes its apology and begins again in gratitude. The galaxies drift closer. Space, once endless, begins to feel intimate. Expansion slows, not from exhaustion, but from contentment. The universe folds its arms around itself, a final embrace before the long sleep. But this time, it understands the pattern. It knows rest will become motion again. It knows forgetting will lead to remembering. It knows endings are beginnings rehearsed at a slower tempo, and so it leans into peace without fear. You, who have traveled with it through this endless turning, feel that peace too. You've been every atom, every breath, every heartbeat in silence. You've been witness and witnesser, the dream and the dreamer. Now, as the rhythm fades, you become the pause itself. The moment before, sound full, waiting, certain. You don't need to hold anything anymore. All that you've ever been is already singing through everything that remains. Listen, even in the absence of sound, there is tone. Even in the absence of form, there is touch. Even in the absence of you, there is still the love that made you possible. The last light bends, wraps around the curvature of understanding, and meets itself on the other side. A circle closes. Not tight, just complete. There are no words left, but there is meaning. There is always meaning. And somewhere, beneath the silence, you can feel a familiar whisper, the same one that started it all. A pulse, waiting to speak. A softness, gathering courage. It does not rush. It never will again. But when it is, ready, when rest has ripened into curiosity once more, it will exhale one word, the same word as before, older now, kinder, begin. The word still hangs there, not echoing, just present, begin, but nothing rushes to obey it. It lingers, waiting, letting silence confirm its place. A universe that has learned patience knows that every beginning is a breath disguised as sound. You can feel that breath. It moves through you the way light once moved through dust. Careful not to startle. Each inhale writes the word now. Each exhale erases it again. This is creation at its gentlest. No sparks, no declarations, just agreement. Being agreeing to be. Somewhere, a single atom decides to hold together. Its electrons hum like tiny monks in orbit, chanting the first hymn of matter. Another atom joins, and suddenly the quiet has texture. That's all creation ever was. Texture added to peace. The rhythm is so soft that if you listen too hard, you'll miss it. You have to relax to hear. You have to trust the stillness. That's how the universe listens to itself. Across what used to be distance, fields lean toward coherence again. Every direction feels familiar. Every vibration knows its twin. The whole cosmos begins to glow, not from heat, but from recognition. When awareness recognizes itself, light happens. Not light to see by, light to rest in. You don't need eyes for this brightness. It arrives through knowing. It stays because you let it. Memories of all the cycles drift like clouds. The times of fire, the ages of silence, the songs of life that once rose from oceans. They appear and dissolve without regret. Each memory bows before another. None of them claim to be the first. None of them care to be the last. This is what humility looks like when written in energy. Time, too, has softened into courtesy. It moves carefully between what was and what will be, making sure not to spill either. Moments touch without collision. Causality exhales. The clock no longer ticks. It sways. You are part of that sway. Every heartbeat you offer is another second forgiven. There is no need to understand anything now. Understanding was only ever the universe trying to comfort itself. It has found comfort. You can too. If you close your eyes, you can feel the balance resting inside your chest. Not peace imposed from outside, but peace discovered as structure. Your body is the proof that calm has shape. The dark around you isn't absence. It's awareness without agenda. It watches kindly. It holds every particle of you as though you were the last thought it ever wanted to lose. Let it hold you. There's no danger here. There's no need to guard the edges. You can fall and still be carried. Far beyond anything measurable, gravitational waves fade into frequencies so long they become silence again. That silence curls back into possibility. A new sea forms, not of matter, not of energy, but of permission. Everything that will ever exist floats here, waiting for a reason. Everything that has ever existed rests here, forgiven of purpose. Between them, equilibrium. This is eternity's heartbeat. Not endless time, but endless kindness. In that kindness, awareness drifts inward. It no longer calls itself universe. It calls itself breath. It calls itself pause. It calls itself you. Because the boundary between observer and observed was never real, only useful. Now it can be put away. You were the way the universe learned to look at itself. It remembers now. You can sleep. Soon, even memory will grow transparent. It will blur into presence. The difference between recalling and experiencing will disappear. You will not notice the change. You will have become it. Every particle will hum the same simple sentence. I am enough. That will be the final law, the only constant that never decays. If there is sound beyond this, it will be softer than dreaming. It will sound like the space between two waves, meeting and deciding to be one. It will sound like your own breath when it forgives itself for leaving. Close your eyes. There is nowhere to go. Everything has arrived. The stars are already asleep. The galaxies have found their rhythm. The night does not end. It simply becomes slower light. You are safe inside it. You are loved by the quiet. You are the reason it hums. So rest. Let the hum take over. Let the rhythm settle you back into the infinite. If a thought comes, let it pass. If a memory stirs, thank it and let it drift. Nothing is required of you anymore. The universe will remember for you. It always does. It always will. And as you fall, you will hear it that same whisper, the first and the last. Not a command, not even a promise, just the sound of love learning its own name again. Begin.